It's just like watching Brazil. This is a song you'll hear sung regularly on the terraces when a team, whether that be Brazil themselves or Norwich City, are at the very top of their game and playing attractive football. There is a reason for that. The likes of Neymar, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and of course, the great Pele and their incredible skills are the reason that football fans love the game. The beautiful game. But there's one name that somewhat tragically has never been mentioned in the same breath as these great names, and arguably should have been, or at least would have been, had his career and life not been cut short. The name you've probably never heard of, but really should have, is Dene. Anyone whose nickname is the God of Dribbling just has to be special, and the fact that when playing against the great Diego Maradona, the Argentina legend simply stopped and applauded him. You just know he must be one special talent. So why do we still talk of Pele, Ronaldinho and Ronaldo as past Brazilian greats to shape the modern game, but don't talk of Dene in the same way? Well, tragically in 1994, at the tender age of 23, with his whole career ahead of him, the god of dribbling passed away. You hear of so many what-if stories in football, and Diner's is right up there. The World Cup of 1994 was the great Ronaldo's first in a Brazil shirt, but the young mercurial talent didn't even get to set foot on the grass as his team went on to claim their fourth World Cup title. Many now look on and believe that it would have in fact been Diner who would have been part of that squad instead, and that his career could have been very similar to that of the Barcelona, Inter Milan and Real Madrid legend. And like so many other stories, the Diner story very nearly didn't get off the ground in the first place. At the age of 15, Diner lost his father, and despite an obvious gift, made the selfless choice of quitting football to help his mother with the household bills back in 1986. But the limelight often follows extreme talent, and when taking part in a national futsal tournament, this tournament was so big that it would be broadcasted on the TV across the country. The young Brazilian was picked up and offered a scholarship due to his obvious talent. The education side wasn't appealing to Diner, but the futsal was what he loved, and his talent saw him dominate matches with his flair, skill, and pace. Already, Diner was earning more than he ever could in a regular job, and he was hooked, and back involved in football as quick as he had originally quit. Sao Paulo and Portuguesa were among those blown away by the young talent, who walked away with every award possible, and he put pen to paper with Portuguesa to kick off his football career straight away. While nowadays there are strict rules and mentoring programs supporting young players when signing their first professional contracts to ensure they stay on the straight and narrow, Diner had been offered no such luxury in Brazil in the 1980s, and his life as a street kid was still very evident. He was led into behaviour that threatened to derail his football career before it had even started. There are many ways to endear yourself to your new teammates at a football club, but being arrested by police midway through a training session while being accused of armed robbery probably isn't one of them. 2 days in custody were only shortened as his club pleaded with the authorities and promised to look after and nurture him. Diner's story continues to get more and more bizarre. No more than when after 2 years at Portuguesa, when the club couldn't afford to officially promote him to the first team, despite his obvious talent and experience, he orchestrated a fake transfer away from the club so that he didn't have to leave. Yeah, work that one out. He was so desperate to stay that he forced the president to offer him a contract by stating that he was signing for a team in Belgium, even going as far as packing his bags and driving to the airport. The trick worked, and the Maverick Diner was indeed given the contract he desired, as the club knew there was no way they could afford to let their star talent move away. Remember Maradona's goal against England at the World Cup? Diner was basically doing this every week and training and replicating it on the biggest stage in matches for Portuguesa, meaning it wasn't long before the golden shirt of the national side wasn't far away from being on his back. The weight of such an iconic shirt was far too heavy for many players, who failed to live up to expectations. Not Dener, though. Confident as ever, he dribbled forward with the ball to set up the equaliser, making an instant impact despite having only 6 minutes on the pitch to impress. As always, impress is exactly what he did. However, as talented as he was, it was never ever smooth sailing, as he went on to miss a crucial match after injuring himself doing wheelies on his motorcycle. To compound his misery, the Brazilian under-23s side failed to qualify for the Olympics, and due to being their star man, Dener got the blame. The stories of Dener's antics are endless. Before a crucial match against giant Santos, Dener went missing, and no one knew his whereabouts until he showed up 2 hours before kickoff. At 2-0 down, the coach tore into Dener, blaming him solely for the team's catastrophic performance. The rest of the story is entirely predictable, as the enigmatic star turned on the style in the second half, inspiring the team to go 3-2 up before rounding it off with another spectacular goal that Maradona would have been proud of. Dener regularly turned up to training in a car covered in bullet holes, and also allegedly turned up with a concealed blade, with the thought of stabbing a teammate. He was taking the term loose cannon to new levels, but his talent almost always made up for it. Despite constant comparisons to Pelé, his bad boy image meant he was often alienated from the national team, where the likes of Cafu, Roberto Carlos and Romero were starting to shine. That could and should have been Dener, but clearly it was felt he couldn't be trusted. In a desperate attempt to revive his Brazil career, Dener worked out a short-term loan deal with Grêmio to get him away from the trouble that his hometown often seemed to bring him. Upon his return to Portuguesa, as his name was getting bigger and bigger, it was becoming apparent that the club could not afford to keep the star, even joking about naming the stadium rights after him. Dener had become bigger than the club. In a bizarre request, Dener asked the club to get him a Mitsubishi Eclipse as a sign-on bonus, something that, due to Brazilian law on importation, was like gold dust. When he inevitably got the car, he stuck out like a sore thumb, driving around in a white version of an incredibly rare car, with Dener 10 printed on the bumper. Tragically, this would later prove to be Dener signing his own death sentence. Vasco da Gama came calling, and determined to right the wrongs of his previous national team experiences and get into the 1994 World Cup squad. This seemed the perfect move for Dener, who was craved by the president there. Playing for one of the country's biggest clubs while cleaning up his bad boy image away from his hometown. What could go wrong? The move appeared to be a good one, and his debut was testament to that, as he dominated the match against Maradona's Newell's Old Boys. The great man was so taken aback and impressed by Dener's flair, he simply stood, watched, and applauded as the young Brazilian set about tearing his defence apart. A perfect day ended in a perfect way, as Maradona made his way to Vasco's changing room with the sole aim of shaking Dener's hand. Do compliments get any better than that? I doubt it. After some consistently dazzling form, Vasco fans even described Dener as a combination of Pelé and Garrincha. The sky really was the limit for this enigmatic talent. On the pitch, he was flying, but off the pitch, it was a different story. A month into his Vasco career, Dener's girlfriend passed away in tragic circumstances after being hit by a car during the carnival, leaving behind their 3 children to the care of Dener. His on-the-pitch performances continued, and he earned a move to German side Stuttgart for a $3 million fee. Sadly, that move never materialized. After going to Sao Paulo to conclude negotiations, he then decided he must go back to Rio for his beloved Mitsubishi. Family begged Dener to stay the night as he was exhausted after constant travelling, but Dener insisted on making the 5-hour journey. In true Dener style, he was close friends with Otto Miranda, a known arms and drug dealer, and he invited this questionable character to join him on his long journey to Sao Paulo. Dinheiro was also close friends with another Brazilian footballer named Edinho, who also happened to be the son of Pelé. Edinho since revealed that on that day he received a phone call from Dinheiro, who seemed different in his behaviour, telling Edinho that he loved him. Edinho claims that Dinheiro must have known what was going to happen to him on that day. Tragically, while Otto was driving, the two of them got into a car crash colliding with a tree. A crash that Otto escaped from, but devastatingly to his family, friends, and fans, proved to be fatal for Dinheiro. The images of Dinheiro lying lifeless with newspapers covering his face would be broadcast for the whole of a devastated Brazilian nation to see. Brazil, and indeed the whole world, had been robbed of one of football's true heroes. The sky was the limit for Dinheiro, and we will only ever be able to speculate exactly how far his undoubted talent would have taken him. If you like this, don't forget to subscribe and like the video.